CalyxOS is back in public releases, some good news for privacy in the US, and what would you do if a flock microphone appeared in your yard overnight? All this and more coming up with This Week in Privacy 60. So stay tuned.
Welcome back to This Week in Privacy, our weekly series where we discuss the latest updates with what we're working on within the Privacy Guides community and this week's top stories in data privacy and cybersecurity. I'm Nate, and with me this week is Jordan. How are you doing, Jordan?
I'm doing great. So excited to jump back into some more privacy news this week.
Yeah, it was a busy week. Thankfully not super overwhelming, but definitely no shortage of stories to choose from. And I think first up here, we're going to go with some news from CalyxOS, who is officially back in a public release. So some of you may remember, to kind of give you the full drama, let me go back to the beginning. So I believe it was about... Oh God, it was about this time last year. Holy crap. Maybe a little after this, maybe closer to the fall. But CalyxOS, which is a, I know this is going to be controversial just to say this, but I think it would technically qualify as a de-Googled Android in the vein of something like Lineage or EOS, arguably Graphene, just in the sense that it's like Android, but they try to reduce some of the Google bits that are in there by default. We'll get into all that later, I'm sure. But CalyxOS, they announced that a few of their key members were leaving, including their lead developer and Nicholas Merrill, who founded the organization. And they also announced that coinciding with that, they were basically going to freeze releases and completely redo their backend. And there was a lot of speculation because it was really weird, right? They were basically they were like, we're going to rotate our keys. We're going to come up with this new key signing thing. We're going to streamline our process. Like, we're just going to overhaul everything from the ground up. And there was a lot of speculation, like, that's really weird. Like, is there evidence of compromise? Like, did Nicholas take the keys with him when he left? Like, what happened here exactly? And so they did put out a statement. They were like, no, like, there's no evidence of compromise, but they still never really said why now. Like, they didn't just say if it's like, look, we've been meaning to do this and now is a good time, or what the case was. But they said about 4 to 6 months. And for the record, I'll admit my bias. I like Calyx. It was like one of the first, it was the first de-Googled OS that I like ran full time. So I have a soft spot for it. But I do have to admit that they really overshot that goal. I think they finally released, and here's what I was going to say. Some of you guys may remember a couple months ago, I think it was around February or March, maybe January. I'm bad with time. They finally announced, okay, we have this like beta release that you can go and download. But they weren't fully back yet like this. So that's what this is. They are like, we are back. We have a full release. You can go download it now. You can use it. Their communication could have been better during this almost year-long process. They only issued like 3 or 4 status updates. And again, they really never explained, like, why are we running behind? Why is this taking so long? What are the roadblocks? Just a personal pet peeve of mine. Like, I know I'm kind of doing the analysis already, but like, I'm a really big fan of, like, if something is taking longer than expected, tell people why. Don't just be like, oh, we're working on it. Like, tell people, like, we ran into this issue. This broke. This turned out to be harder than we expected. Blah, blah, blah. Just let people know, man. But anyways, so it's fully back. There's version 7.2.2.0, which unfortunately is still based on Android 16. They have not upgraded to Android 17 yet. But on the plus side, they do say that there is, they do support a new phone now. Where did that go? I can't find it. I probably scrolled right past it, but they are supporting a new phone now. I think it's the Shift Phone 6 or something like that. So that's pretty cool. They say that they are, oh yes, there it is, the Shift Phone 8. They say that they are working on Android 17. So what they did is they switched to HSM-based open source signing solution, which HSM, from what I understand, I'm a little bit outside my expertise here, but from what I understand, it's kind of like it's almost like a physical server that handles the signing keys. That's probably like a really grossly oversimplified version, but it's supposed to be like really super secure. So they've got this new, like, really secure way of handling the signing process. They did release the security audit and the provisioning ceremony and everything. They also did do some things, and here's what I'll be interested to see. So they say in response to Google's less frequent AOSP source code releases, which for anyone who missed that, Google used to release the Android open source project, I think once a month. And now then they switched to like once a quarter. And I think now it's even gone down to like twice a year. I could be wrong about that, but it's definitely a lot less often. So now all these I don't want to call them derivatives, these forks of Android that we like to use in the privacy community now have to do so much extra work to try and get this. And that's like the least of things that Google did, but that's a whole different story. Anyway, sorry. In response to Google's less frequent AOSP source code releases, our team developed scripts to reduce overhead in applying monthly patches and updates. So that's pretty cool. They say they have set up a cleaner server structure to streamline each release. Currently, our lead engineer is continuing maintenance on the base device trees for both Lineage and Calyx to bridge the gap created by the absence of Google Pixel device trees, which is, again, another thing that Google stopped publishing that makes the job so much harder. So they said we'll share a timeline soon for releasing Calyx 8 with Android 17. And last but not least, they did have some personnel changes. Again, like I mentioned, they said that their core developer working on the Aurora store is leaving for another opportunity. I think they said, I don't know if they've replaced him yet, but they said they did welcome somebody to replace someone else who does infrastructure. So yeah, it's definitely. So I guess let me start by saying that Calyx is not officially recommended by privacy guides just because we feel like it doesn't really bring anything meaningful to the table in terms of privacy and security. Like, I think it's not bad, and I think the decisions, at least in my opinion, I know there's some people who argue that it's a downgrade in security. There's I think, personal opinion, I think the decisions they make sense. Like, for example, they say that I think it's the clock server still pings Google because they're basically like, well, it makes you blend in better. But at the same time, I think that's a matter of what do you want out of a device? Like, that's kind of a personal opinion thing. Like, do you want to blend in with everybody, or do you want Google to not get your IP address in the first place? I don't think there's really a wrong answer there necessarily, but I guess my point is, like, I think their decisions make sense, even if they're not the right decisions. But I will be interested personally to see. I guess I think one of the big reasons, again, there's several reasons, but one of the big reasons that we don't recommend Calyx is they've historically been very slow to provide updates. And they did kind of fix that shortly before this reboot, like a year or two. It was a couple years before this reboot. They released the what is it called? The Security Express channel, which is basically you can go into your settings and you know how you can sign up for like the beta releases, the stable releases. Well, they added a third option called Security Express, which is only the security releases. So you still have to wait for the features to hit stable, but you will get those security patches usually within a couple days of when they publicly released by Google. So that was really cool to see. But then there's this whole thing that, like I said, was supposed to take 4 to 6 months, took almost a year, not a lot of communication. So personally, I will be really interested to see with all these infrastructure improvements and the scripting that they've done. And I'm really interested to see if this is going to make a difference with their release schedule, because I think that will go a long way to addressing at least some of the biggest concerns with Calyx. Now, again, they don't do like the hardened memory allocator. I think we have a page somewhere on the website that I'll go find while Jordan gives their thoughts. But, they don't harden the memory. They don't really introduce any additional sandboxing. They replace Google services with MicroG. And unfortunately, they do give MicroG elevated permissions in order to run reliably for like notifications and stuff. So that's kind of one of the examples I talked about where some people will argue that it's a step backwards because now you're giving this third-party program some extra permissions, whereas, Graphene will like isolate the Google Play into its own sandbox, which is really genius. So it's definitely I think Eter here said that even with the recent update, it's still a trade-off between security and convenience. Using MicroG and signature spoofing means sacrificing core system security for usability. Exactly. So yeah, it's definitely not our top recommendation, but it's still a popular choice in the community. And the fact that it is back now is definitely really big news. So I think I have rambled on that plenty. Jordan, did you have any thoughts about this story?
No, I think you did a good job covering like a lot of the main things. Sorry, everyone, I'm a little bit sick this week, so if I sound a bit funny, that's the reason why. But so basically, this is kind of, but the reason why I'm covering this is because obviously this is news in the privacy community, because I think while CalyxOS doesn't have, it doesn't compare to GrapheneOS in terms of security, I think, it's possible that, I think there's privacy benefits over stock Android and, other operating systems. But I think, like Nate said, like we kind of do push people more towards GrapheneOS because that is just like the pinnacle at this point of privacy and security. And I think it's also, the gap has widened even more because GrapheneOS has the sandboxed Google Play services, which offers, a good level of privacy from Google by, not allowing it to be a privileged app. So that is, a benefit of GrapheneOS. But then there's this comment here from Dag Overhaul. Does CalyxOS support a wider set of devices than Graphene? Exactly. So that is like the benefit of CalyxOS is, if you do have like a Motorola, or like Nate was saying, like a Shift Phone 8 or any of these other like custom devices. I know they support Fairphone as well. So, if you do have one of these other devices, then boom, that's your solution. But I think, I think we should all be very like cautious about this, because as we saw, like they haven't released a single release because they had a whole restructuring and everything, which, it happens. I think it's hard to keep managing a project for an extended period of time. There were, they had a very cemented workflow that they had for probably 4 or 5 years. So I think it's reasonable to have to take a pause on updates for a little bit to restructure that. So I don't think that is super concerning, but I do think, it is extremely unfortunate, especially when it's like the threat landscape that we're in is where, people's devices are constantly under attack. And if they're not receiving updates, then that is kind of a massive problem, especially because, there's so many attacks that can be exposed to if you don't make sure your device is updated. So I hope that, this is the first official update. I hope they continue making sure they're keeping on top of updates as well. GrapheneOS is already updated to Android 17, whereas CalyxOS is still on Android 16. So they've always been behind. It's just always been, it's the nature of it. GrapheneOS is also behind as well when it comes to, big releases like Android 17. They took, I think it was a couple of weeks, maybe 2 weeks, I think, to have a stable build out. So, there's always going to be a delay. But I think, when we compare the projects, GrapheneOS is just it's a much bigger project. They've got much more developers working on it. It's just a bigger project. So that kind of means that these sort of maintenance tasks get completed more quickly, which is fine. There was another comment from Dag here. Can you run Google Play services /store on Calyx, install and run banking apps, etc.? So I think Nate, I believe, has used CalyxOS quite a bit. So maybe I can throw that back to you and you can answer that question.
Yeah, sure thing. So technically, no, Google Play services does not work. The Play Store, as far as I know, does not work. Usually they recommend using Aurora instead. Instead of Google Play services, you'll use MicroG, which in my experience works fine. I'd say like 90% of the time. Where you run into issues is, so there's one app that I use. It's like a habit tracker. And on Calyx, because I was kind of bouncing back and forth between the two for a minute to kind of compare them. On Graphene, I would get notifications that it's like, hey, our premium version is 50% off for the next week or whatever. And then you click it and it takes you to the Play Store and you can sign up. And it's one of those apps that I think maybe you could have gone straight to the website. I can't remember. But on Calyx, for example, that I think I would still get the notification, but it wouldn't work. Like I would click on it and it would just be like, oh, there's an error because Aurora does not support and MicroG do not support the subscriptions like that. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I was able to pay for it directly on the website and get around that. But sometimes you can't do that. Some apps don't let you pay directly on the website, which is unfortunate. So there's little things like that that don't work very well. The banking apps, in my experience, work pretty well because it still locks the bootloader, so it still gets that security feature that it's looking for. But also, I know that Google is changing how Android verifies stuff, so we may have more issues in general going forward that I would expect to see Graphene handle a little better just because of the compatibility layer thing. So when I was using it, banking apps worked good enough, but there's always a possibility that they don't work as well now because I absolutely stopped using it when they stopped getting updates. Like right after they paused for this whole thing, there was like a big update for Android in general that fixed a lot of like really serious security vulnerabilities, and people were like, "Yeah, you should definitely get off Calyx at least until they fix this." So yeah.
I think we'll watch cautiously on this because it's an evolving situation, but I don't think unless anything huge and major changes, there'll be any recommendation from privacy guides. Just because, like Nate said, there's not really any significant benefit to this over Graphene OS, which seems to have like more focus on privacy and security than CalyxOS does. So I think it'll be interesting to see how well the maintenance goes over time, but we'll definitely make sure we're testing this and seeing how it evolves over time.
Yeah, I think you really hit the nail on the head that like it's really good if you don't have a Pixel for whatever reason. I would definitely personally, I would recommend Calyx over stock Android because at least it will cut down on some of the Google telemetry. But it's yeah, if you have the option for Graphene, it's definitely the way to go. And real quick, I don't want to belabor it, but I did find that article I mentioned. I just want to throw it up on screen real quick. This is an article from 2022. That's why I couldn't find it. I thought it was an actual page, but it's an article. So it is out a little old, so some of the information was outdated, but it kind of shows you Graphene versus Calyx update frequency, Sandbox, Google Play versus Micro G, eSIM activation, extensions, profiles, which that part might be outdated by now. So yeah, definitely go check that out. It'll at least give you a rough idea of why we recommend Graphene instead of Calyx. I think you are muted.
There's been some updates to that article, so it's not 100% correct, but it does have some general things that should be still correct. I believe the things that are not correct is the privileged micro G, and also the privileged app extensions might have been removed, possibly. But
I think Micro G is still privileged. I know they've said that they do want to figure out a way around that because that is a common criticism they get. But last I checked, they hadn't fixed that yet. But I think the app extensions one, you might be right.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure, but definitely that'll be something you have to look into yourself. But yeah, so that's kind of everything we had to cover on this story. I guess we can move into the next one here. And this one is a story here from 404 Media. Apple's Hide My Email vulnerability reveals people's real email addresses. Hide My Email users deserve to know that it may be possible for attackers to discover their hidden email addresses, the person who reported the issue said. So basically, if you... Okay, this seems to be paywalled, so that is a bit of a problem.
Here, I'll hop in because I have a subscription. I'll say that, to be honest, that's kind of all there is to the story because they said that 404 said so. One thing that I will say was interesting is apparently this came from Tyler Murphy, who is the co-founder of Easy Opt-outs, who we do recommend on privacy guides. I've been using them for years, very happy with them. They were, I don't know if they still are, but they were sponsoring surveillance support back when I was on surveillance support. But apparently, yeah, he discovered this vulnerability and they have not disclosed it because they said that Apple hasn't fixed it yet. And I think that's kind of part of what this article is I think 404 is kind of teaming up with Tyler to like pressure Apple into fixing this because I think they said they reached out like all the way back in May and Apple was like, oh, okay, thanks, we'll fix this. And then like stopped responding. So we don't know exactly what this is or how it works, but I think this was an interesting story to cover because email aliasing is definitely getting a lot more popular. We're seeing more like IVPN, I think, has an email aliasing service now, and AdGuard has an aliasing service. And of course, there's like Firefox Relay, Simple Login, Addy.io. It's becoming more and more common. And I think Apple's introduction of this really kind of shot it into mainstream attention. So yeah, it's kind of defeats the whole purpose if people can easily figure out a way around this. And I don't know. I guess I've seen some discussions. Do you happen to know, Jordan? I mean, again, we don't know the exact vulnerability, but I know some of the people in the comments of this article were wondering, like, do we think this might apply to some of the services we do recommend, like Simple Login or anything like that?
I have a feeling that the way that this vulnerability works is somehow tied back to the Apple account itself, like the Apple ID, because the way that the like hide my email aliases are created is like tied to your iCloud account. I have a feeling it's something to do with that. So, but I could be wrong. Obviously, because they're not revealing what actually is the problem here. They're just saying that it might be possible. So, yeah, it's not. We don't have. I mean, I can't see what's in this article, but like it sounds like there isn't a whole lot of information in addition to that.
Well, Joseph here in the comments, I'm scrolling through the comments of the article, and Joseph Cox, the author, said that it reveals the email link to the Apple ID. So I think you might be onto something with that.
Yeah. I think, we've never recommended Apple's hide my email, so, it's not like this is a direct threat to people in our community, but I can say that I've used hide my email stuff just because it was convenient, like signing up to a new account with like my Apple account and stuff like that. I've used it before, so, maybe someone can find my real email address or something, but I mean, I don't think it's a huge issue, but I can see how this would be kind of a problem, especially if you're like a whistleblower or like someone doing something a little bit, you don't want something tied back to your identity. So it's not really great, especially when that's kind of implied with the service. It's called hide my email. It's literally in the name. So if it can't do what's in the name, then that's a bit of a problem. So I'm not really sure what the outcome of this is going to be, but we can kind of circle back to our website here. And we do recommend a couple of different email aliasing services. So you can kind of take your pick, I guess. So I guess first off, we recommend Addy.io and Simple Login. There might be more added at some point, but this is kind of what things are looking like at the moment. Addy.io is, a free service, same as Simple Login, but they limit some of the requirements. Like I think you get like 10 domain aliases on Addy, and you get like 10 on Simple Login as well. So you got some options definitely, and I think maybe it's time to switch away from Apple's closed ecosystem. I think usually they're pretty good on privacy related stuff like this, so I think they'll fix it, but it could be a better time to start looking at better alternatives. And I think one benefit of Addy.io and Simple Login, at least the paid plans, is you can send emails to any address from any of your aliases, which is something you can't do with Apple's hide my email, which I found really annoying. So don't make that mistake. But yeah, so that's kind of what we recommend. I would say there's no need to panic at this point because as far as we know, it's not publicly disclosed or anything like that. Apple is usually pretty quick, but we'll probably have an update for that next week if Apple does actually decide to change this.
Yeah, for sure. We'll keep people updated. But yeah, I think we just wanted to include this story because I know Hide My is kind of popular. There are some people who still use Apple for any number of reasons. And they're like, well, I'm already using Apple. I'll go ahead and use the Hide My thing because it's so cheap. So it's important to know that. I will call out a couple quick comments. Like Cisco here said, I've been buying a custom domain and having a catch-all email address. Honestly, I do the same thing. I really like it. I have a custom domain that I use through Simple Login. And yeah, I can just make things up on the spot or whatever. And personally, I like that because if Simple Login ever shitifies, I can go to Addy or I can go to, whatever the one from IVPN is called that I keep forgetting. Like I can switch very, very easily, which I think is cool. And then Dag Overhaul here said, use aliases for spam control, not anonymity. I don't, he says, make them forward to an anonymous email address. I mean, yeah, I mean, I guess if you want to go hardcore, I want to nitpick a little bit and point out that anonymity is not privacy. And the idea of privacy is to be able to control who has access to your data. And that's the whole idea, is like, you're not supposed to be able to see the main email address. Like that is the one job. That is the whole job of alias emails. So, I mean, that's certainly a way, a very advanced technique if you're super concerned about it. But yeah, MailX, thank you. You just posted that in the chat. And yeah, DuckDuckGo is also an option. I found it difficult to use personally, but.
Yeah, you kind of need a third-party extension to make DuckDuckGo's one work well, which probably is not a good sign. But someone asked, what's up with the floating head? Privacy, I guess. I don't know what to say. Like, this is the privacy channel. Like, you should know why. Like, but yeah, that's the reason. Just don't want to show my face if I can avoid it. And yeah, I don't really have much more to add here, unless you want to talk a little bit more, but could jump into this next story here.
Sure thing. Do you want me to take this next one, or would you prefer to take it?
How about I give the rundown quickly, and you can add some of your US perspective, because I think you're going to have a lot more to talk about on this one. Supreme Court ruling guts government's use of geofence warrants. SCOTUS falls short of deeming geofence warrants unconstitutional, though. The Fourth Amendment protects a user's location history, the Supreme Court ruled on Monday. The same logic already applied to a cell phone's tracking, and the High Court found no good reason exists to reach a different result for location history collected by third parties like Google. Split 6-3, the majority agreed that the government needs a warrant and must show reasonable cause to turn a phone's location tracking services into a government surveillance tool. So the decision came in a case where cops used a so-called geofence warrant to track down an armed bank robber from a list of all phones logged in the area. Applying a three-part process, cops worked with Google to narrow down the list of suspects and eventually arrested Okello Chatri, who had opted in to share his location with Google every few minutes. Chatri was sentenced to 12 years in prison, but challenged the geofence warrant as an unconstitutional search. So the US tried and failed to argue that no search was conducted under the Fourth Amendment, partly because they only searched a little bit of Chatri's location data, which the government considered too small to warrant privacy protections. They also claimed that Chatri was aware that voluntarily sharing his location with Google could mean that law enforcement might get access to the data. And along similar lines, the government argued that Chatri's data simply showed his movements in public, where he supposedly had no reasonable expectation of privacy. Okay, so I guess that's like the main rundown of this. Unless you have like, it definitely goes on a lot more. So I don't know if you have more to add on this. I mean, of course you do. So what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I do. I do want to, real quick, I do want to run through what the judge said, because I think it was really, it's one of those things where it's like, oh, you're so close to getting the point. She said that Google repeatedly prompts users to turn on the service, often warning that their devices will not work correctly otherwise, while not disclosing in that prompt how frequently location information would be recorded, how precise it would be, or how it might be given to the government. She said that much like carrying a cell phone is part of modern life, so is allowing a third party to track your movements, and that doesn't diminish a person's right to privacy. And then Justice Sonia Sotomayor, I think is how it's pronounced, noted that even short-term monitoring of a person can reveal a wealth of details about his family, political, professional, religious, and sexual associations, particularly if he's been visiting sensitive locations like a clinic, attorney's office, or strip club. Yeah, so I mean, it's really like it's one of those. It's like, oh, you get the point. Come on, like just take it further. But yeah, it's I mean that's kind of all it is right there. I guess is the police tried to be like, oh, but it's he's moving around in public, like that whole no expectation of privacy thing, and I think they even tried to make the argument. So like the police tried to make the argument that it's like the phone itself has no expectation of privacy, or something like, no, like the phone itself does, but the apps don't, or something like that. And the Supreme Court was basically like, yeah, but let's be real. We live in an age of smartphones. Like, who's not going to have apps on their phone? That's the stupidest argument I've ever heard. So I'm not. The Supreme Court surprises me in a good way sometimes. I'll just say that. Yeah, I think my only other thought is, at the very beginning, that little subheader, it said like the Supreme Court falls short of deeming geofence warrants unconstitutional. And I think that is an important thing to note, is like this doesn't ban geofence warrants, but I think this might almost be better. I'm not a lawyer, and I would happily welcome any input from actual lawyers on whether I'm right or wrong. But I feel like this is almost better because like saying that geofence warrants are unconstitutional, I feel like would be relatively limited. Like the way US law works is you can always cite that as precedent in another case and expand it and stuff like that. But I feel like that was still much more limited as opposed to this, where it applied to like third-party collection of location history. I feel like just is so much more broadly applicable. So I'm kind of hoping that this is almost like in the long run an even bigger win because it can apply to so many other things. Again, not a lawyer. Happy to hear from any lawyers out there if I'm right or wrong. But I think that was my only other thought that I wanted to add.
I guess like this kind of makes me think, does this apply to, other data collection? Like, could this apply to like stingrays being used to collect, IMEI numbers, or could this affect, Facebook or any other company? Or like, is this specifically about Google's location tracking, or is this just like...
That's a great question. I mean, the article said third parties like Google. They said the Fourth Amendment protects a user's location history, and the same logic applies to a cell phone's tracking, and no good reason exists to reach a different result for location history. So my thought would be, I don't know about the stingrays, because I feel like that's probably like a law enforcement exception kind of thing, which, I mean, granted, I guess they didn't do here with the geofence warrants, but my guess would be, if anything, this will only apply to location data until, because that's kind of the way that US law works, is like everything is built by cases. And I mean, I don't want to go on too long, but basically that's why it's so important and so strategic to like see if we can get this in front of the Supreme Court. I think Cindy Cohen talks about this in her book, actually, Privacy's Defender. Like, you want to get a judge who's sympathetic to your case, because once they hand down a ruling, there's certain criteria that make something legal precedent. That I learned from her book. And anyways, long story short, it's like, basically it's not always enough to just be like, well, here's what the law says. The court has to interpret it and deliver a ruling that like either affirms or clarifies that law. So I feel like it's one of those things that like, okay, location history is more or less settled now, but all the other things like messages, metadata, timestamps, like those things are probably not protected until somebody comes along and has a case, a precedent setting case. That would be my guess.
Okay. So like, all the other data that's collected by the apps on your phone can be hoovered up by this, is what you're saying?
That would be my guess. Again, not a lawyer, but as I understand it, that's probably how it's going to work, at least until further notice.
Well, I think we take these wins. So this is a win, I think.
Definitely. That's why I wanted to include this story. We get so few wins. It's like, you know what? I'll take it. This is a good one.
True. Yeah, that's good.
Also, real quick, want to point out, Dag here said, robbing a bank while carrying a phone with location sharing enabled. Smart guy. I know, right? Like, everybody knows that phones, even quote unquote normies, know that your phone is constantly spying on you. Like, what idiot brings their phone to rob a bank? That's insane.
Yeah, they're basically like tracking devices at this point. So it's a bit, I mean, maybe it's a spur of the moment thing,
Maybe. I've heard weirder things. But I think that will take us into site updates, unless you have anything to add to this story.
No, let's dive in.
All righty. Yeah. So in a little bit, we're going to talk about surprise flock devices, which that's going to be a fun story. But first, I mean, So I'm gonna level with you guys. We actually forgot to talk about what our site updates are this week, but I know we've got let's see. I know we put out a video recently, and I filmed. Oh my gosh, the weeks are starting to jumble together. I filmed a video last week about some NSA history and the crypto wars, and I think that is over with Jordan now for the good editing. I think I've told you guys this before. I do like the rough edit where I cut out all the long pauses and the stutters, but Jordan's the rock star who adds all the special effects and the graphics, and so I'm really excited to see how that's going to turn out. That's going to be super awesome. But honestly, it's been kind of one of those slower weeks where it's all stuff happening behind the scenes. So I don't know if I have too much more to add other than that. Have you guys done anything, Jordan? I think you and Jonah have been working on a project, but I don't know if it's published yet.
Yeah, so Jonah did sit down with Rudy Wang, who's the product manager at Cape Mobile, which is like, I guess for people that are not super aware, because we kind of wanted to make people aware of it, or at least answer a lot of people's questions, because I think people are rightfully so quite suspicious about this sort of service. You see like this so-called private and secure mobile carrier. It's like, it looks kind of sus. So, obviously we had some questions, and Jonah did like a really good job of asking technical and also just like general questions about the service. So hoping to get that interview out soon. It's all edited. It just needs some extra bits to make it flow together a bit, like an intro and outro and stuff like that. But otherwise, it's looking good. So hopefully we can get that out to people soon, because I think that we've had so many questions about this service, especially on the forum. Like there's been a lot of questions and people being rightfully suspicious, because I think when we see these new services, it's hard to know whether they're legit or not. And I can say, after watching the interview and seeing their responses to the questions, they truly do know what they're doing, which is interesting. It's not something that Privacy Guides recommends at this point, obviously, but maybe it could be at some point. It's definitely an interesting service, but it's one of these really annoying things that I think people outside the US always kind of get annoyed about, is all these cool privacy services. They're all US only, like privacy.com, like, this service, all these sort of more niche things. It kind of
Voice
makes
over
sense, I
IP
think,
services.
voice over IP. Yeah, there's just like more of an appetite for that thing in the US, which is good, because when things get popular in the US, it basically means like it'll bleed over everywhere else eventually. So yeah, that's kind of what I've been working on this week, kind of been finishing up that. I've not been super busy this week, so not a huge amount to report on, but doesn't seem to be any site updates this week either, really. We definitely need to push through some pull requests on the website. So we'll be working on that soon. But yeah, I don't really have anything else to add. Yeah.
I think last thing I can add is just, as always, privacyguides.org/news. FRIA was on fire this week. We have articles about how there's a town in Massachusetts that got their Flock contract canceled after public backlash. So remember, that stuff does work. Google is trying to make reCAPTCHA even worse, and something about like, I don't think it's biometric hand scanning, but they want you to like move your hands certain ways. It's so dumb. Brave is adding containers to the browser if you're a Brave user. So yeah, lots of really cool stuff. FRIA's been crushing it with the articles. So, but that is
Yeah, and
all I got.
I think on the Flock cameras, we talked about it last week, but check out dflock.org. That's how you can find like local groups and stuff. So you can get Flock kicked out of your city. So definitely check that out. But yeah.
Cool. Yeah, so all this is made possible by our supporters. You can sign up for a membership or donate at privacyguides.org/donate, or we still have the merch shop over at shop.privacyguides.org, which is where I got this awesome water bottle, which is really coming in clutch. This I'm on the East Coast and we had a nice little heat wave, and whew. Yeah, Privacy Guides is a nonprofit which researches and shares privacy-related information and facilitates a community on our forum and matrix where people can ask questions and get advice about staying private online and preserving their digital rights. And now, some exciting news from WhatsApp.
Yeah, so WhatsApp usernames are already raising impersonation red flags. So I guess if anyone here's been using Signal, which I kind of assume everyone here's using it or has used it at some point, Signal's kind of had usernames for, I think, probably a good while now, like maybe 2 years, a year and a half.
I was going to say a couple of years, yeah.
At this point, so that was kind of a huge, amazing feature because you could give people a username instead of giving them your phone number, which, you know, it's nice to not have to give people your phone number every time. So that's kind of awesome. But WhatsApp is rolling it out now, and WhatsApp usernames are being used to impersonate people. So WhatsApp this week started rolling out username reservations ahead of the broader launch planned later this year. The feature, which lets people find and message each other by handle instead of phone number, is already raising impersonation concerns, drawing scrutiny from security experts and regulators in India, the app's largest market, with over 500 million users. The rollout marks a shift in how people identify one another in WhatsApp. Instead of relying on phone numbers as the primary identifier, users will increasingly interact through platform-managed usernames, a change that Meta says improves privacy, but that critics argue could create new opportunities for impersonation. So I think one interesting thing about this and how this relates to Signal is with Signal, it kind of removes the impersonation concern because the usernames are actually randomly generated. So like if you put your name as, let's say I put my name as Jordan in Signal, it will automatically add 2 or 3 numbers to the end. So I'm not reserving as a username specifically. There's extra numbers at the end to make it more randomized, and it allows more people to have a nicer and easier to enter username, right? But the way that I see this working in WhatsApp is that it doesn't have that extra number at the end. It's just a handle, which I think is what this is kind of raising concerns about, because when you have usernames like that, especially when you allow reservation of a username, basically a bunch of people can just, it's basically always been an issue, right? With any platform, if someone reserves a username that you own, or for your brand or for your company, then you're kind of screwed, right? Like you can't take that over unless they're using it to impersonate you. So that's kind of what we're seeing with this. And this has already been, a concern where this article says the concerns have already reached regulators in India, where cyber fraud schemes frequently exploit messaging platforms to impersonate police, banks, and government officials. In a notice sent to WhatsApp on Wednesday, reviewed by TechCrunch, the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology said the feature could materially increase the incidence of online fraud, phishing, digital arrest scams, and impersonation attacks by enabling bad actors to contact users without exposing their phone numbers. So, yeah, I feel like this Ministry of Technology is like taking this in the wrong direction. They're almost saying like, this is offering people too much privacy. We should have everyone be identified by their phone number. I don't think that's the solution here. I think the solution is to allow this, but to add an extra number, or to not allow people to basically squat a username. I think allowing it to be basically ephemeral, or something that you use specifically to connect with someone and that it expires or something like that, that could be a little bit better in my opinion, because yeah, like this article says, it can be kind of used to impersonate companies and governments. But do you have anything, you had any thoughts on this one, Nate? Or
Yeah, it's interesting because let's see, I'm actually double checking here because yeah, so Signal, I there's not a lot of details in. I actually have two articles here, and one was like the initial like WhatsApp is rolling out usernames announcement, but even that one like really doesn't explain a whole lot about how this actually works. The only thing they said that I thought was interesting, they said users will be able to set an optional key that others will need to know before messaging them via the new username. So that's like one way to cut down on spam and stuff. But I remember when Signal usernames came out, I thought they were going to be abused. And then people pointed out, it's like, but people can't see your username. Like people can see your username if you share it with somebody. But like, let's say I give you my username and you message me, I can't see your username. So it's not like you can do an impersonation. I mean, any more than you could with like any other messenger, right? But it's not like where like Twitter or Mastodon, where you could make it Nate B at whatever, and it's like, oh, now I'm impersonating Nate. Like you could change your display name, but that's about it. So that's kind of what I'm wondering here is like, is this, are these usernames visible? Like, is that what the concern is that people are going to see that they're getting messages from some of the examples they used here were like, what is it? India Modi is still not open or is still open for registration, which for those who don't know, Narendra Modi is the Prime Minister of India. So it's like, are people going to think that they're getting messages from Narendra Modi? The Binance founder, Chepeng Zhao, said that he couldn't reserve CZ_Binance, which is the handle he already uses on Twitter. So it's like somebody's probably already using that. And it's just really weird. And WhatsApp says that there's certain handles that they're like reserving to verify that they're legitimate users, but they didn't explain what those handles are or like how they're deciding. Because they're meta and they're never super open. So yeah, there's just like a ton of questions here about like, how does this work? How are you going to protect people from impersonations like this? I'm seeing here, I'm doing some additional research and it could be wrong. Usernames must be 3 to 35 characters long. Let's see. You can change or delete your username at any time, though deletion reveals the phone number again for 14 days. Oh, and when you delete a username, it can be reclaimed, which I think is true of Signal as well, but it's also just like, again, if somebody's squatting on a username, I don't know. It sounds like this was not rolled out as thoughtfully as Signal, which is probably not surprising coming from Facebook. But the only other thing I will say, Cisco here said it sounds like another way for them to sell verification subscriptions like Instagram. That's entirely possible because this article from TechCrunch did note that they did say, oh, where'd it go? I know I had to scroll pretty far down for it. It will let users claim their existing Instagram or Facebook usernames by linking their accounts, saying that the option is intended to help creators, businesses, and organizations maintain a consistent identity across Meta's platforms while reducing impersonation. So, yeah, I don't know. They'll probably charge for that down the road because why not, right? But yeah, I think those are kind of all my thoughts. It just, I don't understand how this is supposed to work and why didn't they just copy Signal? It was already there. So
I mean, okay, so I'm just reading an article about how this works, and you did mention like the WhatsApp username key, and it looks like it's a 4-digit code that's linked to your username. So it sounds pretty similar to how Signal does it with like a number at the end of your username. So that does make sense, but that doesn't seem to really, I don't think people are going to use that. People just use the default thing. Like they're not going to use this extra privacy feature, I don't think. Yeah, this is kind of a problem, I think, but which, Meta never really, it's always, with Meta, they always don't take the right path. They always, go the wrong direction with stuff. Like we saw, they removed end-to-end encryption from Instagram DMs. All sorts of bad decisions on their part. So this is going to affect a lot of people, like a ridiculous amount of people. So I hope that they do fix this or make it a little bit better because so many people use this app.
So to clarify, yes, if my research is correct, if you do not have the person's phone number saved in your contacts, they will see your username instead of phone number. But if they do have the phone number saved, they will see your phone number instead of username. So that's what the issue is here, is if I message you and my username is India Modi, I can pretend to be Narendra Modi. That was... Sorry, every once in a while my brain needs to reboot because I'm like, why do people make so much money to be this irresponsibly stupid? And it makes me so mad. Yeah, Tag said it here. People talking about the Instagram DM thing you said. People weren't using the encryption feature that we had disabled by default and hidden deep in the settings, so we removed it. Yes, exactly. God, that was so annoying.
I feel like this is not like a... I feel like Meta sort of does this thing where they're like, here's this feature, and then like here's the added protection that like literally no one is going to use because it's like hidden deep in like the settings. It's like, okay, like the default setting on Facebook is to like share your phone number and contact list by default. It's like, well, yeah, but you shouldn't do that. But it's like by default it does that. So yeah. Anyway, we can be mad at Meta all day. So
oh yes, I can. I certainly can. But let's be mad at Flock for a minute instead.
Sounds good.
So we'll move on to the story here about a woman was surprised when a Flock surveillance tower appears in her yard without warning. So there's... I'm going to say there's a silver lining here, but it just raises more questions. So this woman, Kat Vaughn of Roanoke, went to the park. Like, that's how quick this happened. I mean, I don't know how long she was at the park. It says she returned home from a brief trip to a nearby park. So maybe she was there for 30 minutes. Maybe she was there all day. I don't know. But either way, it's not like she was gone for a week or something. And when she came back, she discovered that there was a freshly installed device sitting in the parkway strip, which is a section of public land between her lawn and the street. So to be fair, this is the first caveat. It wasn't technically her lawn, but it was right in front of her house, which is one of those things where it's like, if you put a camera right in front of my house, like, what gives, dude? So it actually wasn't a camera. It was a Flock Raven audio detection unit, which is Flock's knockoff of ShotSpotter, which is basically a microphone that they stick on a pole that is supposed to tell if there's a gunshot nearby, but it is what's the word I'm looking for? Cartoonish. Shout out stuff they don't want you to know. It is cartoonishly inaccurate and bad. It constantly gives false positives. It constantly it constantly flags things that like the manual oversight people are just like, that's like whatever, just dismiss it. That's not a gunshot. It's so bad. It's so bad. But you know, hey, somebody's making money, so why not the psychopath running Flock? So anyways, they installed this thing. Here's where I say there's a bit of a silver lining, but it just raises more questions. So Vaughn called the police, and the cops came out to take a look at it. And even they were just like, she said, okay, so when the officer got out here, he wasn't sure what it was either. So we went and got a tall ladder to be able to get up to take a picture of it closer. And he said, yeah, I think you're right. It's a gun surveillance device. And they weren't supposed to be installed until July. By the way, it is July 3rd for anyone listening after time. So this was, God, what was this article written? June 28th. So they're ahead of schedule. And then on top of it, so they went and checked the city records. They said that the city council had approved the deployment of 75 of these sensors at various locations throughout the city. And the patch of land in front of Vaughn's house wasn't on the list. So that's why I'm like, this raises further questions. Like, okay, on the one hand, I mean, first of all, these things shouldn't exist in the first place. Like I said, they don't work. They're garbage. They're just somebody's get rich quick scheme because somebody has no moral code. But putting all that aside, it wasn't supposed to be in front of her house, which is good because, again, like, what the hell, setting up a surveillance device in front of somebody's house? But like, how did it get there? Who put it there? Why did they put it in early? Like, I have so many more questions, but I don't know. This was just such a wild story. When I read this one, I was like, I really want to share this story, but I don't know if there's any real takeaways here. Just a very insane story.
Yeah, that's incredibly wild. I guess one question that I do have is like, what is this? So wait, it says Flock Raven audio detection unit. So is this, am I understanding correctly that it's like listening for the sound of a gunshot and then it's going to like do something with that? Like,
so the idea is that it's supposed to detect, and I mean, I'm sure it goes without saying, but you're supposed to put it in like rougher neighborhoods where gun crime actually happens. But the idea is that it detects a gunshot and then alerts the police, so we don't have to wait for a 911 call. Or, you know, especially in, I'm not trying to stereotype here, but in some of these poorer neighborhoods, it's like, you mind your own business, right? Like, you heard a gunshot? No, you didn't. Not if nobody got hurt. You'd mind your own business. So the idea is, even with with ones that don't get called in, it'll alert the police and they can come by. But like I said, they're proven. You can look these up online. I can't remember who covered it, but somebody did a really deep dive. It wasn't 404, because this would be 404. Actually, 404 may have covered this too. But it's been proven that they have like this ridiculous false positive rate, that they detect like car backfires or fireworks, like things that any human would hear and be like, that is not a gun. And it thinks it's a gun. And then on top of it, there's always the privacy concerns too, of the slippery slope, right? Like, okay, sure, today it's a gun. What happens tomorrow when it's like speech? And you're like, well, we're just listening for violent crime. You know, we're listening for the two people on the corner doing a drug deal or like planning a crime. And it's like, okay, today, what happens when tomorrow they're planning a protest? Or, you know, these things there's literally no redeeming quality about these things except to make somebody at the top rich. I'm going to say that, full stop.
yeah, I mean, my question with this though is like, what if you just like want to fire your gun on your own property? Like, what about that? Like, what are you not? I thought you were allowed to do that. Oh no.
Yeah, or like Dag said, like, don't watch any action movies with the window open. Yeah, I mean, it depends. I would imagine that in a city, it's probably not cool to be firing a gun on your property. But I don't know. I mean, that is certainly a good question. Like, yeah, there's all kinds of scenarios I could see where it's like, I'm not doing anything wrong. I don't know. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's wild.
But yeah, that's a pretty short one. I don't think I have much more to add to that one personally.
Yeah, fair enough. I guess we can dive into some forum updates here. So in a minute, we'll start taking viewer questions. So if you've been holding on to any questions about any of the stories we've been talking about so far, go ahead and leave them on our forum thread or in the comment section on the live stream. For now, let's check in with our community forum. There's always a lot of activity. And here's a few of this week's most interesting discussions happening there. So I'm going to take this second one here. This one is about Reddit. So if anyone here has ever had the displeasure of visiting the Reddit website, then you'll know that it's frequently become harder and harder to access information on Reddit, especially if you're using a VPN, especially if you're using it logged out, especially if you're using any sort of privacy protection. And one way to get around a lot of these restrictions was to use the old.reddit.com website instead. So basically, instead of reddit.com, you would use old.reddit.com instead. And that would basically load like the old, less JavaScript heavy version of the website. And that bypassed a lot of the issues that the newer version of the website has. But this reporting here from Ars Technica says that Reddit will require you to log in to use old.reddit.com. So logged out old Reddit access is a significant source of abusive scraping. So Reddit will start requiring people to be logged into Reddit to use old.reddit.com. The new requirement will take effect over the next month, a Reddit employee going by the username BoatBotany announced on the social media platform today. The person claimed that the change is part of an ongoing effort to tighten how automated systems access Reddit. So basically, the excuse that they're using is this is basically becoming a source for, I think, let's read in between the lines. This is an issue with AI scrapers. It's kind of always been a concern, but I feel like a lot of like large language models are basically training a lot of data off Reddit because it's so openly accessible. So this is kind of just a move by them to restrict the access. And I guess by having people log in, then, you kind of can track activity. So you can see that someone's visiting every single subreddit, every single post on every subreddit. You can see that they're scraping and block their access. So by logging in, we get a lot more signal that allows us to detect whether an account is breaking the rules, and then we can block that traffic or enforce those accounts, Boat Botany said. As of writing, Ars Technica was still able to use old.reddit.com without logging in. And the news is likely to upset some longtime Reddit users who've relied on old.reddit.com for a familiar look that they find easier to navigate and digest, and who also want to view Reddit without logging in for convenience and or privacy. So yeah, anyway, this old.reddit.com website is kind of a source of scraping. So, there's also in this article, they also said that old.reddit.com might not exist forever. So it might almost be time to retire. That's what they said. So it's they said they can't promise it'll be around forever. So that'll be interesting to see. But Nate, do you have anything you wanted to add to this story here?
Not too much. I think I just wanted to share this story because I know that old.reddit.com is a very popular thing in the privacy community. Like they said in the article here, it doesn't really contain any less trackers per se, as far as I know. But if you can do it without logging in and you're using a privacy respecting browser like Brave or Firefox, then it's still a better privacy thing. Because like you said, yeah, I've noticed it too. It's not as bad as it used to be, but there was a period where Reddit was like really being a stickler for like, if you had a VPN on, like, nope, instant login page with their stupid little trying to be cute mascot that I swear to God, I wanted to punch it every time. But yeah, it's getting harder and harder to use. And also like they make a point about like a familiar interface. Cause like I just noticed I'm not super active. I go through ups and downs if I'm being totally honest. I don't think I'm super active on Reddit, but every once in a while I'll be super active for like a week and then stop using it for like 3 months. But I've noticed this week I've been on Reddit a little more and I logged in and now they're doing that same crap that everybody else is doing. It's not bad enough that they had an algorithmic timeline. Now they have a suggested timeline and your actual following timeline. And of course, by default, every time you log in, it goes back to the suggested timeline. So it's not just the subreddits you subscribe to, it's also a bunch of other crap you're not subscribed to that's popular, like Ask Reddit or r/whatisthis or whatever. And it's like, I don't care. Like if I cared, I would subscribe. Stop trying to show me more subreddits. So it's just, the eternal problem of enshittification, right? Like it's frustrating. And it's sad that because Reddit does have, objectively, I think it does have some value in the sense that a lot of the time when you look up something, even without the AI summaries, a lot of the time you look something up, and especially if it's something more niche, like, hey, what are the reviews on these shoes? Or like, I'm having trouble with this. I'm trying to think of something I'm actually having trouble with recently, but I'm having trouble with a thing. Like I'm looking for a little life hack. Like Reddit is really good for that kind of stuff. And it would be really nice to not have to log in to use Reddit just to check somebody's thread. So it's really a shame and it's really annoying. Although to be fair, Reddit is so astroturfed, I'm not sure how much I trust a lot of those answers anyways, but yeah. So just, I guess, again, I just wanted to share because I know that is a really popular trick to use in the privacy community. So you guys should be aware that it is going away, unfortunately. So.
Yeah, I think one thing that I saw an interesting comment on this article, actually. Someone was saying they don't really need to require a login. Like there's other ways that we can detect humanity, right? There's like, Anubis, like using, yeah, exactly. So Dag said you can do that tracking or bot prevention measures without forcing a login. Smells more like preparation for age verification. Yeah, and I think a lot of third-party apps actually rely on old.reddit.com to like basically scrape it, and it's not scraping, but it's like I don't know what you would call that, but it's like,
are you talking about a lot of the front ends?
No, just like apps like Infinity. There's an app for Reddit which is called Infinity, and there's another one on iOS. But I believe they just scrape like old.reddit.com and then just use that to display the content to bypass some of because there was API restrictions. They don't
Yeah, I
use the
remember that.
API. So
Oh, okay. I was wondering what happened to
Yeah.
that because I remember there was a big deal about it, and then Reddit said they were going to work with some of the more popular apps like Apollo, and then just like never went anywhere with that. So okay, I was curious
Yeah.
what happened to that story.
Everyone just went and didn't want to give Reddit money. So yeah, that's
Fair.
everything I had on that story there.
Okay. And in that case, we'll jump over to our other forum thread, which is the Kids Act has passed the House. So again, this is just like a really quick signal boost. If you live in the US, definitely please check the newsletter for a link. So this person links to the text of the bill and how each representative voted and how to find your representative at house.gov, which is awesome. Excuse me. So I think this still has to go through the, let me see here. Yeah, it still has to go to the Senate, and then the president has to sign it. But this is basically an age verification law. You know, it's I think correct. I could be wrong, but I think it's kind of just like an amalgamation of a bunch of bad bills that have not passed. But, you know, it requires specified online platforms to establish safeguards for minors, such as limiting access to sexual material, providing parental controls, and requiring AI chatbots to disclose information to users who are minors. And, you know, that's the first thing is like, how's the chatbot going to know if you're a minor? They have to age verify you, right? And, you know, the whole like limiting access to specified sexual material. Sure, that's great until just general like sexual education becomes specified material. It's just these things are just a slippery slope and will not end well. So if you are American, find your senators, because no offense to this person, thank you so much for sharing this, but like your representative already voted. I guess you can feel free to vote him out. I think we have a primary coming up. I should do some research, but find your senators, I would say, because it's already passed the House. Like you can call them and yell at them, but it's not going to change their vote. So what we need now is to call the senators and say, do not vote for this. Or I don't know if this actually works, but my thing is I tell them, I'm like, if you vote for this, I will actively campaign against you. Like, if I'm being real, I probably don't have the time for that. But like, I will happily tell everyone why they should not vote for you. So yeah, call your senators if you live in the US, because this is not good. Yeah, Dag said they should provide parental controls and leave it to the parents. We've covered this topic like 5 or 6 times now, and yeah, that's definitely a thing we say all the time is like, at least in other countries, when you start a new phone, like an iPhone or whatever, the first thing it asks you is like, does this phone belong to a minor? And if you say yes, it walks you through all the parental controls. And I don't understand why they can't just do something like that, but whatever.
I guess,
Whatever,
one interesting, like, I guess to talk about this a bit more, like, is this whole act, is this something that is bipartisan? Is this like some certain part of the government that's pushing for this? Is this something like that?
That
Or
is
is
a
this
good question here. Let me see this link. So it was a Republican who introduced it, but no, it's pretty bipartisan. 162 yeses from the Republicans, 32 noes, 24 not voting. Democrat, 104 yes, 85 no, 23 not voting, 1 independent yes, everything else 0. That must have been Bernie Sanders. I think he's an independent. Or is he a senator? I don't know. We don't have a lot of independents, but yeah, 267 for, 117 against, 47 not voting. So it's unfortunately kind of bipartisan. Why do our politicians work together on the worst laws? Why can't you guys
like,
unite on something good?
they'll squabble about like really silly stuff, and then they'll just like all unite to like do the most dystopian like 1984 stuff. Like what?
It's so bad. Yeah, Dag is right. I've said this before too. No one can say no to protecting the kids. They do this on purpose because then if you don't protect the kids or if you vote against it, then people are just like, oh, you hate children. Like it's a rhetorical device and it's absolutely awful. So, yeah, kind of off topic, but Cisco is like, Bernie's independent. I think he's independent. I could be wrong. I know he was independent. No, he's independent. 1978 till present, according to Wikipedia. So yeah, Bernie's independent. I think when he ran for president, he ran on the Democratic ticket because we live in a 2-party country and like he has a better chance of living to walk on Jupiter than winning as an independent. But other than that, I think he's always been independent.
Interesting. Okay. At least what I'm seeing is, well, I guess to kind of ask this, I mean, I'm seeing there's predictions of whether this bill will pass. But do you think this is something that will pass? Like, is this something that is most likely to not have any issues passing through the Senate and the president, or?
Honestly, I don't know. I'm not politically aware and educated enough to really be able to speculate reliably. Although I will say, like, a 2/3 of the people voted yes. So I mean, that's a pretty big margin.
It does say on this website that I found, govtrack.us, that there's 34% chance of being enacted. So I don't know really what that means in that.
It means we should still call our representatives and not trust that to be the case.
Okay.
Because all I'll say is the Eurovision odds that I read every year are hilariously wrong and off. So I don't know if I trust the odds on anything at this point.
Yeah. So I guess how can people access like a list? How can they find who their senators are? Who can they find, like, because you said it doesn't really matter because it's past the House at this point. So
yeah, no, good question. So there is senate.gov. And honestly, if you just type into any search engine, if you just type in like, who is my representative, there are so many websites that you will have to put in an address. I'm telling you people that right now, because they need to know what district you're in. But to be fair, when we're talking about the national level, it probably doesn't have to be like your exact address. Maybe it can be the house across the street. I don't know. But there are okay, so I just typed it into Brave search. Who is my representative? First result, House of Representatives, house.gov. Second result, congress.gov. Third result, commoncause.org. This one's for New York City specifically. This one's for California specifically. USA.gov, senate.gov, Texas, Pennsylvania. So, I mean, yeah, there's no wealth or no shortage of websites that will help you. Ballotpedia, I've seen them around a lot. Some of them, like house.gov and senate.gov and congress.gov, focus on the federal level, but I've seen some websites, I think it's Common Cause, will literally go all the way down to like, here is your local school board superintendent. Like some of them get really, really deep down there. So yeah, you definitely don't have to dig too hard to find the national ones for sure.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've seen quite a lot of coverage about this like Kids Act thing. And I've actually been seeing like stuff about people saying it doesn't go far enough. It needs to go further.
Yeah, why does that not surprise me?
Please don't make this happen, because I think once this passes in the US, I think it sets a massive precedent for everywhere else. It's like, oh, it's in the US, you know, like if it's good enough for the US, it's good enough for everywhere else. Like, so hopefully we can avoid that happening. And that it doesn't get even worse than what it already is. Can it change? Can the bill change once it gets, or does it have to re-go through the House again?
I think it would have to go through the House again. I could be wrong, but I think it can change. Yes, it can get to the Senate and somebody could be like, no, we need to amend this part. But I think if they make changes, it has to go back to the beginning. But I could be wrong about that.
Okay, so there's still hope. Okay. Yeah, that's the US has got nothing on the EU plans, like chat control and age verification for all the things. Yeah, I think there's different problems. There's different problems in different countries, right? Like, I think the US has a massive problem with data brokers, which is not really the case in Europe. A lot of data is public in the US, so that's another issue. You know, every country has different concerns, I think. And I think it's not super smart to just, you know, start a ranking contest about which country is better and all this silliness, because, you know, it doesn't really get us anywhere. I think we can be critical of every bad law that every country wants to put in place. And there's definitely some terrible stuff going on in the EU as well, which we've talked about extensively as well. It's not like we're only focusing on the US in this case too. Another comment here from Cisco. I don't know if you've seen, but Bill C-36 in Canada, it's banning social media for people under 16. Yes, we've been kind of following that. There's the C2 and C22 and C36. They're all pretty terrible stuff. I did see that currently the Canadian Parliament is on break, so there's a bit of time to contact people, your representatives, about that. Dag Overhaul said, EU protects you from corpos as long as the government has complete control. Okay. It's definitely a different way of running a country. Let's just say that. Yeah, so that's kind of all we've got on this, unless you had anything else to add on.
No, not really. Yeah, I guess we can move into the Q&A section. So we'll start by, we'll start by taking questions on the forum from our paying members. And as a reminder, you can become a member by going to privacyguides.org/donate, or anywhere on privacyguides.org. You can click the red heart icon in the top right corner. So we had one reminder on the thread to consider adding XMR chat. Jonah is actually off this week. So again, he handles a lot of the higher level decisions like that. I know he's expressed interest in adding XMR chat. It's just, again, yeah, it's there's a lot going on here. You know, he did the Cape interview, and there's just, I don't know where it is on the list, but I'm pretty sure it is on the list. And again, reminder that you can just donate Monero directly. Like, I know it's not quite the same as XMR chat, but it is there. So.
Yeah. Any donation is always appreciated. There's also a comment here from Cisco5561 who said, I'm planning on contacting my rep, but I don't really know what to say. Okay, so for people in Canada, there is Open Media, is who you probably want to look at. They have been running a really good campaign against basically every privacy invasive thing. I think they've got a press release already out about Bill C-34, Bill C-63, so a whole bunch of them there. So I'd check out Open Media, openmedia.org. They've got a lot of good resources. And I think they also have, they have other related stuff as well, not just like privacy related stuff. There's stuff related to other I guess consumer protection stuff, so it's worth checking out that as well. It's probably stuff that you'd also support, so they're a great organization. I don't know of any more in Canada. That's the only one that I know, but I know they do good work. So if you need some, I guess, extra info on what to say, they've got you covered.
So I thought of the American route, and my first thought, hot take, let me finish to the people in the audience. My first thought is this could be a good use for an LLM, like Leo or Lumo, like one of the privacy respecting ones. But like, hey, I want to oppose this act. I don't know what to say, and it'll walk you through it. Alternately, if you prefer not to use AI, which I totally don't blame you, I literally just typed in oppose the Kids Act into Brave. And okay, I don't know anything about this organization, but the very first result that popped up was a website called 5calls.org. And it has, if you click that link and scroll down to the bottom, it has a script. Hi, my name is blank, and I'm a constituent from city and zip code. They will ask for your zip code in my experience. That's like the thing they care about. I'm calling to demand that Representative/Senator who oppose HR 7757, the House Passed Kids Act, and any other legislative package that includes COSA and age verification requirements. Broad legislation like this does nothing to protect anyone. Instead, it blocks states level laws and shield big tech companies from accountability. It must be opposed. Thank you for your time. Pretty straightforward. Sorry, I know I read that kind of fast, but you know, just I mean, maybe post in the forum, like on this actual topic, like you could get some opinions from other people. Or honestly, what I've done in the past is because I was opposing, I think it was like was it called like the LEAD Act, like the Lawful Law Enforcement Access to Data or something. I don't know. It was a backdoor act, but I would literally call them, because I had like 3 federal or state level state level, federal level. I had 3 like federal level reps I had to call. And so I would literally just call them on my lunch break, every single one of them. And I would say that like, hi, I'm calling from this zip code. I'm a voter. I oppose this thing. And they would just take it down, write it down and go, okay, thank you. And that's it. Like, I don't know if it's less effective than giving them a why, but you know, it's, you don't have to say much is what I'm getting at. Like just expressing any opposition. Just the thing I always tell people, please be sane. Don't tell them they're evil. Don't tell them they're stupid. Be polite. Just like, I oppose this. This is not the right way to solve this issue. So, yeah. I do see we actually just got a question in the forum thread. Oh, sorry. That says, how important is threat modeling for privacy? I've put that off for the longest time, which has led to a lot of underprotecting or overprotecting. I don't feel like it's talked about enough. That's funny because I harp on threat modeling constantly, and I still feel like there was a point where I was like, okay, I think we've talked about this enough. But in general, so I mean, I think it's really important because, like you said, without threat modeling, you don't know if you're doing too much or doing too little. And especially, I think a lot of people in the privacy community have a habit of doing too much and not realizing, to the point where it starts to impact like mental health or, relationships with friends and family. And it's like, okay, you can pull back. Like you're not a spy operating in North Korea. You don't need to be that hardcore. But alternately, yeah, it could lead to a lot of like, oh, I'm using Linux with, I'm using cubes and graphene and all this super secure, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, okay, cool. Have you taken your data down from the internet from before you got into privacy? Like, so I think it is really important. Although I will say that I don't think it, number one, I don't think it necessarily has to be a formal process. Like, I don't think you need to sit down like you're making a budget at the dinner table. And the other thing that I haven't found a good way how to explain this yet, but I think something that doesn't get talked about enough is the fact that a threat model is less of like a specific thing, like a specific consistent thing. And it's more of like, I guess I would say it's more of a philosophy for how you approach data, because in the sense of like I'm trying to think of an example here. So this is an example. I don't know if this is a good example, but in non-privacy online spaces, because I do hang out in those sometimes, I typically don't post photos of myself because I don't want, even though it's very unlikely, I know Privacy Guides is not that famous and neither is the New Oil or anything, but I don't want the off chance of somebody like, oh my God, you're Nate, like I recognize you. But I mean, like offline, if my wife is like, hey, can I take a selfie of us doing, this Christmas event together? Like, yeah, of course, I don't care. Like it's not about a consistent, like no photos of me ever, right? It's contextual. It's like, where is this photo going? What is it used for? Who's it being shared with? What are the risks of this photo? My wife might send it to the group chat, the family group chat, but who cares? Everyone there knows what I look like. And I don't know, maybe that wasn't the best example. I'm working live here off the cuff, but my point being is like, it doesn't have to be the same level of protection across the board, because it can be very contextual on like, what are the risks? What are the likelihoods? That's all part of threat modeling, and it will vary from situation to situation. I don't know if that made sense.
No, I think you brought up some good points. Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's, I don't think you have to do anything super quickly as well, because I do feel like some people, they're like, oh my goodness, I found out like how my data is being used for all these like terrible things, and now I've got to like update every password and like secure every account, delete hundreds of accounts today. It's like, no, like you got to slow down a little bit. Like don't go too fast, don't think things through. And yeah, it can definitely go too far, I think. Yeah, I don't really know. I mean, I don't personally share a whole lot about stuff that I do on the internet with people in real life. So it's always just a nebulous. I work on internet things and that's kind of it. But I think, it's good to think about like what your what your threats are, because, you know, me and Nate, because we're on this public podcast, are going to have a different threat model than you as a person just participating in our forum, I guess. Not drastically different, but like, you know, obviously we're sharing names, Nate's sharing his face, I'm sharing my voice. So, you know, you have different threats to consider. And I definitely think don't rush into things, because yeah, you can make decisions that you can't undo. Like, for instance, if you show your face, well, you kind of have to show your face forever, right? Like, you know, so, you know, just take that as something, as a warning, I guess. I've definitely made mistakes. I've definitely fumbled along things, but yeah, we're trying to work on more educational stuff to help people make their threat models and stuff like that. We did have a threat model series that we're working on at some point. It's just a lot, because every week we have like a new video coming out, or like, you know, stuff that we're working on, and like other projects that we feel are more timely or whatever. So things kind of get swept down a bit sometimes, but it's something we do want to try and push to get done at some point, to help people with that, because it is like one of the most common questions that we do get about privacy related stuff.
We should talk about that in the next staff meeting. Maybe now's a good time to do the threat modeling video. But yeah, just to back up what you said at first, like the phrase I like to use is Rome wasn't built in a day, you know, and it's like a lot of people will say that in like personal finance, right? Like if you wake up and you're like tens of thousands of dollars in debt and, you know, screaming towards bankruptcy, a lot of personal finance people will point out like, well, you probably didn't get there once, right? Like you probably didn't just go out and buy like a mansion in the Beverly Hills and now you're screwed. Like it was probably a lot of really bad decisions that added up. And so you're not going to fix it overnight. And it's the same thing with privacy. Like you didn't just wake up one day and like mainline all your ID straight to like a ransomware gang. It's happened over years of data breaches and sharing too much on social media and this and that. So yeah, definitely like pacing yourself, going slow. I do agree with your last part, but I want to say yes and no, because there are certain things, like you said, like you put your face out there. I wouldn't say you have to keep doing it, but it's certainly harder, especially the more you do it. Like at this point, my face will probably never be off the internet, but you know, if you do it once, like you could probably take it offline, but you do have to acknowledge that you might not. Maybe somebody screenshotted it, maybe somebody archived it, whatever. But also there's a lot of other things in privacy that I think are reversible. Like, I think I've shared this before. When I first got into privacy, I deleted Steam because I was like, oh, like I'm going to be into privacy. I'm not going to use Steam. And then over time, as I kind of adjusted and got a better feel for it, I'm like, actually, I'm willing to take the hit and keep using Steam. And I know in retrospect, I probably should have gone with some other platforms that are less problematic in terms of DRM. But from a privacy perspective, I was like, I'm willing to take the hit because these are games that bring me value and I enjoy playing them. And now I have to like repurchase all those games that I had over all those years. So instead, what I wish I had done is like, okay, just log out of Steam for like 6 months, you know, or you know, you can always, if you delete Facebook, you can always sign back up. Like some decisions are reversible. And so I think there's, it's just a balance. Like, yeah, some decisions are not easily reversible and you should put a lot of thought into them and not act right away. But then other ones are also like, you know, you can always delete that app. You can always re-download that app. Like, so I can't really give you like a hard and fast rule, obviously, but just something to think about, I think. You are muted. Okay, there you go.
Yeah, I think it's I think the thing is definitely be careful with like email accounts and stuff like that. That's like probably one of the biggest mistakes that I made, was like having a Gmail account that I was like, oh, I want to nuke it so bad, and I just nuked it like too quickly, and there was stuff that was connected to it. So it becomes a nightmare. So I would say keep it around for a couple of years. You can delete it. It'll feel a lot better once you finally are at a point where you're like, I can actually delete this. Because I guarantee you'll be like, oh wait, I remember I've got that account that I made on that website from like 10 years ago. Oh, it's with my old email that I deleted. And it's like, oh, you'll be able to sort it.
For sure.
So.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like I had another quick thought on that one, but I can't remember it, so it must not have been that important. But yeah, I guess if nobody else has any questions, that's all I'm seeing on the forum. I guess we can close out here.
Sounds good. Yeah, let's do it.
All righty. All right. Well, thanks everyone for watching. All the updates from This Week in Privacy are shared on the blog every week. So sign up for the newsletter or subscribe with your favorite RSS reader if you want to stay tuned. As always, a reminder that we send it right when we start streaming. So it also serves as a good little notification that the stream has started. For people who prefer audio, we have a podcast available on all podcast platforms and RSS, and this video will be synced to PeerTube. Privacy Guides is an impartial, nonprofit organization that is focused on building a strong privacy advocacy community and delivering the best digital privacy and consumer technology rights advice on the internet. If you want to support our mission, you can make a donation on our website, privacyguides.org/donate. Or again, on any page of the website, you can click the red heart icon located in the top right corner of the page. You can contribute using standard fiat currency via debit or credit card, or you can donate anonymously using Monero or your favorite cryptocurrency. Becoming a paid member unlocks exclusive perks like early access to video content, priority during the live stream Q&A, early access to the show notes, actually, so you can see what stories we're considering. You'll also get a cool badge on your profile in the Privacy Guides forum and the warm, fuzzy feeling of supporting independent media. So thank you all for watching, and we'll be back next week.
See you next week.